Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you can join me here today. The world we currently live in asks us to be productive all the time. We measure success by how busy and productive we are. The more we do, the more time we occupy ourselves with doing things, the more successful and productive we look. If you look at all the productivity books, a lot of the productivity books out there, they all talk about how you should manage your time and do as many things as you can in as little time as possible, because essentially we only have 24 hours a day. A third of it is going and sleeping anyways. And then a third is probably going with family. And the only thing left is a third where, you have the work that you do. And essentially productivity experts tell us to make our lives as productive as possible by cramming in lots of things. They ask us to have to-do lists, to goal set, to do things that we should be doing by making sure we do as much as we can. But when you take a step back and you think about really what is productivity, what do I need to do to be more productive? I don't think it is to do a lot or to do more than we're doing sometimes. Sometimes the answer to being more productive is to be in a state, in the zone, or as Mihail, I forgot his surname, the Hungarian author in his book called Flow, he talks about the state of flow, where you focus on a task and you just do that, right? Or Gary Cal has a book called The One Thing, where you focus on the one thing. It's all about focusing on that task, narrowing down on that one task, rather than having lots of to-do lists and doing a lot of things, or as Cal Newport calls it, the deep work. You just need to really focus on that. So I've been thinking about this as we goal set for the next year. I've been thinking about for 2025. I've been thinking about how I want to do this for myself in terms of to make myself more productive and to make myself a person who's able to do more things in their life. Maybe I need to take a step back and think about what is important out of the whole to-do list. There's a famous story about Warren Buffett where someone comes to him and asks him for advice on how to do things. Like basically he's done very well over the last 30 years, financially speaking, at least, monetarily, and asking for some advice. And he said, how do you goal set and what should you do and all of that stuff. It's interesting. So Warren Buffett tells him, make a list of 25 things. So these are your goals that you absolutely want to do, and then rank them. And the top 5 goals are the goals you will actively pursue and you'll actively do. And the last 20, the bottom 20, are the ones you will actively avoid. Not you'll do when you're free or when you have some time, on the weekends, on evenings. No. Those 20 are the ones you will actively avoid, because he realized that when you focus on the 5 things, you'll achieve more success than doing 25 things in a haphazard manner and not doing them as well, because you won't reach very far. Anyway, so in terms of these thoughts that I've been having, I picked up a book towards the end of last year, towards the end of 2024, called Slow Productivity by Cal Newport. So that's the book. This is the book he published, his latest book he published in 2024. I've read a few of his other books. One of them is called So Good They Can't Ignore You. I've read his other book called Deepak, which I just mentioned. There's another book called Digital Minimalism, again a really good book about social media. So anyways, I've enjoyed Cal Newport's way of writing. He's got a very eloquent way of writing where a person who reads his books will know how easily it flows. He's a very gifted writer, I think, personally, one of the most gifted writers I know. Anyway, so in his book Slow Productivity, he talks about what pseudo productivity is, where we pretend to be busy all the time by doing lots of things, but actually we aren't productive in that way. We aren't achieving a lot of output using that approach. So what is slow productivity? So he defines slow productivity as follows. So let's have a look. He says slow productivity is a philosophy for organizing knowledge work efforts in a sustainable and meaningful manner based on the following 3 principles. Now, what are the 3 principles he lays out? Do fewer things, number 1. Number 2, work at a natural pace. And number 3, obsess over quality. Now, I'll try and dissect all 3 of these because I think it's important to really focus on these 3 things when he talks about the principles of slow productivity. it goes against the grain of the general productivity advice we've been given growing up. In terms of his first advice is do fewer things. What? I mean, I grew up being told you should do as much as you can. The world is your oyster. The sky is the limit. You should do everything. And he's saying do fewer things. Really? Is that what I should be doing? So what does he mean by do fewer things? So again, let's go back to his definition of what do fewer things means. So he defines doing fewer things as striving to reduce your obligations to the point where you can easily imagine accomplishing them without time to spare. Leverage this reduced load to more fully embrace and advance a small number of projects that matter most. Again, back to what Warren Buffett says, pick the top 5 goals, the top 5 projects you want to focus on, and narrow down and hone down just on those 5 projects and forget everything else. And essentially that's the advice he's saying, just do fewer things. I mean, we have long to-do lists at work and outside work too, and we want to do so many things, but really we don't have the time to do all of it. And even if we do, I mean, his third principle is obsess over quality, which I'll come to in a short while. But we end up doing things haphazardly because we just want to get them done, and it defeats the whole purpose. Oliver Berkman, the Telegraph columnist and journalist, has a book called 4,000 Weeks. Again, a similar concept where we only have 4,000 weeks. An average lifespan is only 4,000 weeks. That's all we have. So if we try and jam pack like 20,000 things to do, we won't have the time to do it. We just physically cannot. And you would rather focus on a few things and do them very well than stretch yourself out so thin, put yourself under so much stress and pressure, and not achieve as much as you had wanted. So that's the first thing, do fewer things. What's the second principle? Second principle is work at a natural pace. Now, what does that really mean? Work at a natural pace, at your natural pace. He says, don't rush your most important work. Allow it instead to unfold along a sustainable timeline with variations in intensity, in setting conductive to brilliance. In settings conductive to brilliance. Essentially what he's saying is, when you're trying to do something that's important, give yourself enough time away from distractions to do that thing. He has, in this section of the book, he has lots of stories about how people, work at a natural pace by going to places, retreating to places and doing things that would help them be more productive. For example, J.K. Rowling, I don't think he has the story in that book, but J.K. Rowling booked a hotel in Edinburgh to write one of her books because she wanted to focus on her most important work. And you don't want to rush your important work. The whole point of, if something is so important to you, if you rush it, the quality wouldn't be as good. You wouldn't be able to give a good output. So you want to take your time, and to be able to take your time, you have to create environments conducive to that task. I've heard a story of a writer or an author, I think, if I'm not mistaken. He had to write a book or a chapter and he was struggling to focus. So he booked a round trip to Japan, 14, 15, 16-hour flight each way, just so he could focus, because if you're in mid-air, there are no distractions. There's not much you can do. And he was obviously in business class, so that makes it easier for him. But he could just focus on the work and get it done without any distractions. No kids around, no pets around, nothing to distract you. Even the internet might not be working, might be slow, might not be as quick as you would have back on ground. And you can get the work done. And that's the whole point, is you want to work at a natural pace, but also have an environment that allows you to work at the natural pace, that's conducive. If you work in a coffee place, go to a coffee place, have your headphones on, and just get your work done. If you prefer a library, go to a library and get your work done. If you prefer a home office without any distractions, that's good, do that. If you prefer the TV to be switched on in the background because that's more productive for you, then do that. Whatever. The whole thing is, everyone is very different in terms of the way they work. I like my peace and quiet. I'd like to focus on something, but I also like working in a coffee place because I know I like the stimulation around because it helps me focus, but I get distracted by noise. So I have noise cancelling headphones to make sure I drown out all the noise, but I can see the people around, I can see this movement around, and I can just focus on my work while things are happening in the background, and that's just me, right? And everyone has their own way of doing things, but the whole thing is you want to be as productive as you can in your own way, because if this project is important to you, if this task is important to you, you have to give it the due course and the due effort it requires, because the output would be what you want. Which brings us quickly and very efficiently to the third principle and foundation that Cal Newport lays out, which is obsess over quality. Now, what does that mean? I think we possibly know what it means, but what does he say? So, obsess over quality is obsess over the quality of what you produce, even if this means missing opportunities in the short term. Leverage the value of these results to gain more and more freedom in your efforts over the long term. Essentially, going back to Warren Buffett, when you're obsessing over the quality of the work you're doing, there might be 20 tasks on the list that might be easy wins for you that you can just do and just forget about it, but that takes you away from the main project and task at hand. If that's the case, then maybe I need to stop focusing on those small things and just spend my time on this big thing, because I want to make sure I give it the best I can. Because by doing so, by working at a natural pace, by doing fewer things and just focusing on this project, I can obsess over the quality of the project, of the thing, of the task, and make it the best I can, because that is what true success is. It doesn't matter if you're doing lots of things. If they're not done in a good enough way, then forget other people, but just for yourself, you'll know that you did it half-heartedly. You did it, but you could have done better. I had a colleague in university when I studied philosophy at Birmingham University in the UK, University of Birmingham. He basically, so we because philosophy is mostly essays. So one of the essays we had to write, I think, was it philosophy of mathematics? I think it was an essay on philosophy of mathematics, if I'm not mistaken. It was a long time ago. So, but anyways, I mean, I spent weeks on that essay. I researched it. I did everything I could, and I got a good grade, which I was happy about. But I put in the effort and work for it. And this guy, his name is Lee. Lee basically spent the weekend. So he started the essay on the Friday. It was due on the Monday morning at midday, 12 o'clock. If I remember correctly. So anyways, he started the essay on Friday and then handed the essay in on Monday. And he got 60 something, 63, 64. It was a long time ago again, so I don't remember the exact details, but he got like 64%, which is a decent grade, 2-1. But I got a good grade as well, but I had to work really hard to achieve that. And I thought to myself, if Lee could have put in the effort that I put in, or the effort to his capability, if he put in the effort, weeks of research, and did the job well, he could have got a first-class grade in that. He could have done so well, because he was a very gifted and bright philosopher. And he still is a gifted and bright individual. But if he could have put in more time and effort into that, he would have got a really good grade, and he would have been proud of it. But essentially, I guess I'm not sure what his circumstances were, but he didn't put in as much effort as was required, and he still did really well. But if he put in even more effort, imagine how well he could have done. And for us personally, when I'm looking at a task and a job, and if I need to do something, if I'm going to do it half-heartedly, then I mean, what's the point of doing it? What is even the point of doing it if you're just going to do it for the sake of doing it? Just don't do it. If that's the case, it's not important to you, then it must be one of those 20 items. It's not the top 5 for you, then obviously just don't do it. But if it is a top 5 for you, then don't get distracted by the bottom 20. I mean, it's easy to get distracted by emails and Slack and Teams and all these things that take us away from the flow state. But sometimes we also get distracted by our small mini projects, right? And those mini projects, when they pile up, they take us away and take our time away from the big project that you're working on. If you give you a quick example of Ali Abdaal. So Ali Abdaal was in the UK. He was a doctor in the UK. He worked on the NHS for 2 years. And while he was working, during his spare time, while everyone else would be busy partying or drinking or doing everything else, he was building his YouTube channel slowly but surely. He had a few other businesses that he was building on, but he was working his YouTube channel. Fast forward to 2024 now, he's got like, what, 6 million subscribers. He's got so many videos. He's got 5 million views. It's a crazy amount. I think he's generating a $5 million turnover a year. Imagine from going a full-time doctor, working part-time on a YouTube channel, he's now earning over $5 million in revenue. That says something. When someone focuses and obsesses over quality and does the best he can at what he's doing, I mean, the world is your oyster. The sky is your limit. Like, even beyond your limits, like you can do whatever you want if you obsess over quality. And I think that's something that we as a 21st century, as a Gen Z and modern generation, we've forgotten what it means to obsess over quality. Another example I give you is of Stephen Bartlett. So Stephen Bartlett he basically is part of the Dragon's Den in the UK, something like Shark Tank in America, Australia. But anyways, he's got a podcast called Diary of a CEO, and he's got a studio in London, but he's also got a studio in LA, I believe, in Los Angeles, I believe, or somewhere in America, but I think it's LA. Anyways, on one of the podcasts, I heard one of the podcasters commenting on the fact that the studio in London looks identical to the studio in LA. So much so that the books are exactly where they are in both locations. And Stephen makes a comment how he obsesses over quality. And I thought that was really powerful, because imagine if someone observes how it is the small things that you sweat over. When you sweat over the small things, the big things automatically fall into place. And I think Stephen Bartlett has a book, he writes this in his book, Diary of a CEO, which I actually have. There you go. This is one of the ones to read for 2025. Sorry, I'm stuck in the past here. For 2025. So this is one of the books I'm going to read. But one of the quotes he has in here is, if you obsess over the small things, then the big things will fall into place. Something to that effect. And I strongly believe that if you do that, if you obsess over the small thing, obsess over the quality, the results will speak for itself. So yeah, that's it from me. I really enjoyed this book, Cal Newport. As I said, I enjoy his style of writing and his style of doing things, in terms of, his style of presenting material. He's got very few chapters. All his books are like 5, 6, 7 chapters. That's it. But the amount of effort, and you can tell it's full of stories. Like, his storytelling ability is really good. So even if you listen to his podcast, you'll know how much how good a storyteller he is. He's able to synthesize thoughts in his head. He's actually a professor of computer science. So this is just something that he's been thinking about and doing it on the side, in terms of being more productive and thinking about life in that way. But yeah, if you like productivity and you want to learn more about productivity, and you're tired of being told do more, because that's how success is, and you just want to look at a different perspective, then Slow Productivity is definitely a way to go. And I think you'll really enjoy and benefit from this book. So yeah, highly recommend Cal Newport's book. And yeah, that's it from me for this week. And until next time, see you soon.